Okay, great. Thank you all for coming. Sorry for barking on the mic to get this started, but if we don't start it, then we'll all just drink beer and eat tacos all night, which would be a total waste of time. Um, Thank you for coming. Um, my name's John. I'm one of the founders of All Hands Taiwan. I'm going to do a little housekeeping at the beginning here. So if you haven't been to one of our events before, we have this style event once a month. We moonlight around town at different co-working spaces and other venues that are friendly to us. You'll see a few people around the room tonight who deserve thank you and recognition. This man here in the beige is Danny Miller. He's a co-founder of All Hands. Over here, making sure the mic is not screechy, is Sean Wilson. He's a partner for All Hands. Thank you. The best dressed man in Taiwan right here in the fitted white shirt is Guillaume Defer. He's also a partner here at All Hands. And back at the front door, I'd like everybody on your way out or when you see him next, the gentle giant, Vaish. He shows up, he works at all of our events, so he was here helping with the volunteers. And hey, Vaish, that's Vaish in the red shirt. Round of applause, please. Vaish has been helping us almost since the start. And two more things before we get started. I'd like to say thank you to Sam and Lam, who are doing our media tonight. If you guys need media, if you have projects, these guys are available. Lam is looking for video, photo work. He also works on a variety of events around town. He's looking for projects. Sam is also part of a community organization called Peace Street Community Center. They do a lot of yoga, meditation, and other arts and community-focused events. So if that's something you'd like to know about, or if it's relevant to what you're doing, go ahead and talk to Sam. And lastly, second to last, Danny, can you see if the air conditioning can be turned on? Lastly, this came to me just this afternoon. I have a job opening to share with you. It's not with us, but if you're interested in what I'm about to tell you at the end here tonight, you can come up and speak with me, and I can potentially connect you with someone. So there's a B2B company, logistics, that is looking for someone who's working in communications as kind of a content creator. It could be an internship. It is a paid role, or it could be a freelance role. If you want it to be an internship, you need to be able to work in Taiwan. So if you have the kind of student visa that lets you work here, that would make you eligible. If you are open to freelancing, but you don't know how to do that in Taiwan, I'll talk to you about that later because you'll hear me talk about it tonight, but sometimes you gotta do illegal shit in Taiwan if you want to stay here and make your career happen. So if that's interesting to you, try and find me later and we can have a chat about it. And without further ado, I think let's get started. I guess I'll jump in and introduce myself first. As I mentioned, my name is John. I'm one of the founders of All Hands Taiwan. I've been in Taiwan 9 of the last 12 years or so. I've lived here 3 different times. I started out as a teacher. I have freelanced at different times in my careers. I worked in ad agencies and marketing departments. And currently I'm back freelancing. So my perspective on career growth tonight will be about my first-hand experiences, which include not only the things I mentioned, but also things like being headhunted, having your power turned off when you live in a foreign country, and all kinds of visa hoops that we have to jump through sometimes to try to figure out what it is to live and stay and work legally or illegally in a foreign country. Lastly, before I pass this off, you guys in the back, if you don't have seats, there's a number of seats up here, and Vaish can also help find more chairs. And if you don't come up to the front, then that's your thing. So thank you. This is Eleanor.
Hello, my name is Eleanor, and I'm local here, so I'm Taiwanese. And I just spent about 1 year in UK only, and so I've spent throughout almost all my life here in Taiwan. And right now I'm an HR supervisor in a German medical device company, and I've been HR for almost 7 years. And right now I'm doing as a full function HR. That means I need to cover all functions of HR, including recruitment. Maybe that's the part that you are most interested in. And I once hired some foreigners to my company, including French, Japanese, Korean, Malaysian, and also, Malaysian, almost about 4 or 5 countries for my company. And so if you want to ask about some questions, how to work here, in Taiwan and to find a permanent job in an international company, yes, maybe you can come to me and we can have a further discussion.
One more thing. If you have questions throughout, do your best to keep them in mind. We may take a quick break for Q&A, but usually we do Q&A at the end. So we'll try to talk for we'll try to keep it tight for about an hour or an hour and 10. There will be a Q&A at the end. If we don't get to you for a Q&A, the panelists are here and available. So if you have a specific question for one of us, by all means, please come up and engage us in conversation.
Okay, my name's Trent. I've been in Taiwan for 13 years now. I've studied here, studied Mandarin. I've done my MBA here, and I've worked for the same company the whole time that I've worked, that I've lived, that I've had a proper job in Taiwan. I, of course, taught English just to pay the bills while I was studying. I started as a technical writer at a large Chinese tech company. I then moved up through product marketing, being a product marketing specialist. It took a year to go and try a different career path in China, and then was fortunate enough to be able to come back to Taiwan, which was nice, and I'm now a product marketing manager in the global marketing department at the same company. So looking after all of the consumer-related marketing and product-related marketing for the whole world for this company, and pushing it out to our regions so as they can localize in their markets. I have not worked illegally as much as John has, but I can share a little bit about that later. And apart from that, I think from my perspective, I'll be talking a lot about the internal movement when you move from, start at an entry-level position of a job, and how to sort of move within the company as opposed to moving between companies to progress a career. So, thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm Magda. I'm Italian. I've been in Taiwan for 2 years. I'm here tonight because I work for Carrefour as HR talent manager. So we can discuss later what talent manager means, but actually is internal talent growth, right? And I'm also here because I've been living in France before coming to Taiwan. And that's actually led me to come here because I'm doing a program which is totally French program. It's called VIE program. So where we spend 2 years for a company abroad, and it's a very interesting program open to European nationality. So if you want to discuss also about this program, I can tell you later. And I think during my career, I've been 5 years in HR department, going through training and now talent management and performance management inside the company. I think there are a few tips I can share with you tonight. And also thinking about my own career, I hope I could have had this kind of opportunity where I can see people sharing about their career to learn. That's why I'm here tonight. Thank you.
A little round of applause for these people taking their time out to and so I'll kind of be, can you guys hear me? Can you hear in the back, Jay? Yeah? Okay. So I'll kind of be guiding the conversation with some questions. So one of the things you don't see at this kind of event is that in advance of the event, we met to talk about these topics and kind of pick out things we hope would be useful and valuable as we share our experiences here tonight. So if you see me peeking at a note paper, I'm just looking at what's next for me to help keep the conversation moving along. So getting started, we kind of thought it might make sense to start from maybe at the beginning of people's careers. So thinking about how your mindset might be, or what kind of job you might be looking for if you haven't yet had your first professional job in Taiwan. And for your reference, when we say professional job, we're talking about something that's not teaching English and something, internships included, but something in a different industry, or it could be education related, but not necessarily teaching in a bushiban. So just so you understand the distinction of how we're using that term and that phrase. So one of the things that came out in our pre-meeting conversation was this concept of don't be pretentious when you're looking for your first job in Taiwan. And I guess I'll speak to this from a personal perspective maybe, and we can kind of just launch into it. So as I mentioned, I taught for 2 years. I went traveling, I came back, and at that time I realized I didn't want to teach anymore. and I had no idea how to find a different job. I have a journalism degree and an English degree, and so I thought I'll try and make it as a writer, copywriter. And for me, the first time I lived here, I lived in Shinju. So when I moved back and I lived in Taipei, I really didn't know anybody. So I didn't have any resources, and my approach was, okay, I live with someone who told me she's gonna work because she's working on her art projects, and she said, I'll work and pay the rent. If you want to try and freelance for a year, why don't you give it a try for a year? So that was very fortunate for me to kind of take the plunge. And not knowing how to or how not to go about finding work, I just set out using both the more modern tools at hand, like including primarily email at that time. This would have been in 2010, 2009, 2010. And so, I just started thinking, what kind of companies need writing? Newspapers, magazines, textbooks, other publishing houses. For your reference, I had 1 year of professional experience back home working in book publishing before coming to Taiwan. Ad agencies need writing, possibly technology companies need technical writers. And so I just started canvassing for companies, and because I didn't know what would be a good job or not a good job, I guess I was fortunate to take a very naive approach, and I didn't at that time have a pretentious approach to finding the job, because my goal was just find any goddamn job and make some money, right? So what ended up happening was I spent a year doing project work because I couldn't find a company. I continually, at all the meetings I went to, I was letting companies know I'm looking for a job. I want a visa, I want to live here, I want to work legally. But what really happened for me was, because I was open, because I went into meetings kind of without a specific agenda, I was able to say to these clients or future clients or ad agencies, they would kind of sit me down and be like, why are you here? What do you want? A lot of these companies didn't employ any foreigners, and maybe they needed English services, maybe they used Taiwanese, or they contracted it to something online or whatever. So they were not used to someone banging on their door, which sometimes I literally went to places if I couldn't find their email and knocked on the door and asked if I could speak to the HR person. And so I spent a year freelancing, and for me, I was very fortunate that I didn't know any better other than I really need to find work, and I have to go about this as if I don't have any other option. So I wrote textbook copy, I wrote for travel and leisure, I wrote for ad agencies, I wrote technical copy for solar panel companies, I wrote whatever would come my way. And what happened for me was, at the end of that, in the 12th month, which was going to be my self-set limit, someone came out and gave me a job. I had been doing work for an ad agency, and I got a call for what I thought was a project, and they said, I hear you've been doing work for a lot of our clients, and this person was leaving and starting their own office, and they offered me a job. And here begins that whole first year I was working illegally. Okay, this is full disclosure. And then this person gave me a job at their new company, which couldn't give me a visa either. So at this job, I actually had to work illegally as well. So then I spent a year at this company doing visa runs and things like that. So I was fortunate that I was able to scramble long enough and earn money long enough somehow to find a job that I did want. But I think what came up for us at the meeting to kick this off is that I also wrote a lot of shit that I didn't want to write. And I had to take jobs I didn't want to do because I needed money and I didn't know any other way to do it. But this concept of don't be pretentious about your first job in Taiwan, I think, has to do with the idea that, one, you have to acknowledge there's more foreigners. There's more foreigners in Taiwan than there are jobs for us. So that means, in addition to whatever you thought about, like trying to get into a good college and you were under competition and all of that, it's very real here. If you want to work in marketing, there's probably 5 times more people that want to work in marketing and communications in Taiwan as foreigners than there are jobs. And so you have to find a way to get it done. And the idea of not being pretentious when you're going about finding that might mean, I don't want to be a social media bitch. I want to work on graphic design. But if somebody offers you a chance to interview for a social media internship, that could be your foot in the door. Right? So that's kind of where we started this conversation. So maybe one of you guys want to kind of jump in and get any kind of stuff on it.
So kind of my experience is a bit different, John's. I lived in Kaohsiung for 5 years before I moved to Taipei. I studied Mandarin, like I said before, I did an MBA down there. And after I graduated, I went back to Australia for a couple of months, and then I just moved to Taipei. And I was living in a hostel, and I'm like, I'm going to stay here until either I get a job all my money runs out. And I was just applying for all kinds of jobs, content writing, creative writing, tech writing, and it just so happened that I stumbled across this job at the company that I'm at now. And I had no tech experience. I'd had probably similar to you, like a year's worth of experience in Australia before I moved here, and then 5 years of teaching, which doesn't count for anything because there's a million people in Taiwan that have got 5 years of teaching experience. So, technical writing, unless you love tech or you've got the personality that you like to sit and just write stuff and don't talk to anyone and be really focused, it can be a really boring job. And so when I applied for the job, it was just to get me through until I found the next thing that I wanted to do. It was just to get the visa and to have me in Taiwan so I could keep looking for what I wanted to do. But then when I went for the interview, it just so happened that in my company, the technical writing department was attached to the global marketing department. So I saw that as a way to kind of maybe move laterally once I got in. So I was able to I got accepted for that job, and I was only in it for about 6 to 8 months before I got moved across to the actual global marketing department and doing product marketing. So, and that was really good because it meant that I was now being put into other roles, doing stuff that I would never have got that role had I applied for it straight up, and it's something I'd never done before. So I did that for 2.5 years, and then I moved to China. I had an opportunity to go to mainland China and try something in a different industry through friends that I studied with when I did my MBA. I would say that going to China is definitely, well, all viruses aside, it's a challenge, but you never know where it might lead you, but it's always good to have the fallback of Taiwan. You can always come back to Taiwan, that's the thing. You never leave Taiwan, I guess. So I would say that if you can't find what you want here, I wouldn't rule out maybe going and trying and doing, because it will be easier to get a job in the mainland. You'll have to live in mainland, of course, but I would say that if it's go home or go there, go and do that for a year and see how you get on. You can always come back. You can come back here, take a week's leave to come back here and look for jobs, or if you need to, you can take a day off and fly back for a long weekend and go to a job interview. So that was kind of helpful. And that meant that when the opportunity came up, when my previous manager resigned, the opportunity came up for me to come back to Taiwan and take over his position. So basically, a year working in China had not only got me experience over there, but effectively got me a promotion to come back to the same company, which I might not have got in the first place anyway. And I've now been there for 3.5 years. So, as far as first job, yeah, I would reflect what John's saying. Don't be pretentious and look at every job as just an opportunity to stay here for longer. Okay, just because you take a job doesn't mean you have to be there forever. Even if you sign a contract, companies will make you sign a 1-year contract so as they can get you your ARC. That doesn't mean that you're bound to work for them for a year. So you can always just take a job as a means of kicking the can down the road a bit longer, so as you can then work out what it is that you actually really want to do. So I think I would be very surprised if anyone will get their dream job as their first job in Taiwan. It's not going to happen. You're going to have to do something else, or think of a creative way to get there, or just think of a way to tread water a little bit while you work on that big goal of getting to the job you want to do. So, yeah.
So I just share about as an HR how I will review the foreigners application. So I think there's one way that called working holiday visa. If you are below 30 years old and you are one of those nationalities who are in an alliance with with Taiwan, maybe more than 10 countries we have the working holiday partnership, something like that. So if you are below 30 years old and you are one of those nationalities, yes, you can try to have the working holiday visa here in Taiwan. And then once you have the visa, it will be much more easier for you to maybe find a job because the employer, the company, like they don't need to apply the visa for you at least for 1 year. So that will be one advantage. And the second is, yeah, like what Trent just shared, is really quite difficult for you to find your dream job or your dream function at the first step. So you can try to find an opportunity first. And once you get into that opportunity, you can also network maybe with your colleagues or some other professionals. And then you can also get another opportunity to jump to other function or other jobs that you are really seeking for. So it's also another tips for you to take a reference. Yeah.
Okay. Anything else you guys want to add to that? You want to add to that?
So I think there is something important the three of you said, but mostly John, he said something I think very important is to let people know what you're looking for. Whatever is you're inside already the company or wherever the people you meet, tell them what you're looking for. Not just I'm looking for a job, but what kind of things you can do, what kind of competency you have, what did you learn, what's your experience. Why? Because I think what I learned when I was in France, for me, I would say is not Taiwan where I was struggling to find a job, but it was back in France when I moved from Italy. Is that I learned really to make people know because they know people and they know people, etc. etc. That you know the story of networking is the same, right? And it's the same internally inside the company. I'm experiencing that now, but I experienced that before. So I studied marketing. I didn't study HR at all. I wanted to do marketing and sales, and actually I ended up a job in international relation in a business school, where I was sending students abroad to study, and I was like, wow, I really love this job. And then I was talking to the HR department there, and then they said, oh, you could try, come and try. If you like people, you're really good with talking different languages, etc. And then I went back to study a master in the UK. When I came back to France, they called me again, and actually I got another opportunity in Carrefour. But at that time, I didn't have any experience in HR, just a small experience, but no degree in HR. I just had a degree in marketing. So actually I had to accept a job that maybe back in the time the job wouldn't fit really my master degree, speaking 5 languages, whatever things I put in myself that I think is what I'm selling to the company. But that job, I met people who believed in me, and I met people from different departments, and I had a very good job because I could speak with different countries for Carrefour. And it ended up that when I was looking, I said, I want to really go abroad. There was an opportunity in Taiwan, and they say, Magda, you take this program. I took this program, and you go to Taiwan. So I think it's a matter of fact, and now I love my job. It's quite hard here, but I would say it's really internally get yourself promoted. So I think it's very important when we say don't be pretentious. Is not just about because you think who you are, because you know who you are, you know what's your objective, you will get there. Just think how you can get there. There are many opportunities can just come out of nowhere in a company or wherever association you're participating, organization, whatever. I think it's very important. And I think you mentioned another point about you were knocking door and looking for HR. I mentioned this the other night, and we were talking a lot about this. We are not the one who's taking the decision in the company. We review their application, right? But we don't know what's in the head of the manager. So actually what you need to look for is the manager. What we can give you is tips, we can help you, but the manager is very important because they know what they want to do with their team. They know what's the organization, they know what kind of job they have and how much you can fit or not in their team.
Yeah, I think that's a good segue to touching base with when you're on the job hunt, how do you go about it? In Taiwan, it's a bit of a struggle in terms of job boards. Obviously, some of you are definitely here. You are in Facebook groups where there may be job postings and things like that. But in terms of when you're trying to make your own specific job search, I think is what Magda started to talk about there is who should you be reaching out to specifically? Which individual people should you be looking to meet? And I think this is largely going to be related to LinkedIn, right? At least in this day and age. Or if not LinkedIn, then perhaps making a first-person connection and using that person to reach the person within their company, for example, that you want to reach. And so what Magda was saying is that essentially in most companies here, the manager in that department, the person who would be your manager or the person who manages the whole team that you might be on, is actually almost always going to be the person who's going to first identify the need for talent, whether it's replacing someone or adding a new role, but then ultimately they are the person who evaluates whether you're a good fit for that role, and they're the major person who you're going to be interviewing with, and you may even be exchanging, directly submitting your resume to them if you can reach out to them. Well, while I spent my first year just like grasping at straws and reaching out to anyone, now I do try to take a more structured approach to that. And I think these days, now I've had the opportunity to be a manager a couple of times and to hire people. And I would say that when you have that, from my experience, when I've posted jobs for the teams that I managed and I received emails directly from people, there are some very obvious things. I think they're obvious that you should consider when you reach out to this person. Some people don't consider them, but when you reach out to someone, when you have the actual email of a person who you believe might have the power to hire you or to at least grant you a job interview, that's like a piece of gold thread that's a really good lead for you, especially in Taiwan. So think about what that person's job might be like. And if you're responding to a job posting, this is very obvious, and this is in lots of articles you'll read online. Put language from the job posting in your messaging to that person, in the email that you're reaching out to them. Show them that you saw what the job title is. And try to make connections to things you've either done or that you believe are your strengths that pertain directly to what is listed for that job. Or if not for that job, then, kind of to Magda's point, to the job you want. Make it clear what you are capable of doing. And if it's not following up on a job posting, do your best to illustrate that what is a strength of yours would play well in that team or in that role that you hope to be there. So I say that this seems obvious because, I don't know, maybe because I've done this now I'm old enough to know better maybe, but I've received emails from people who wanted a job and were responding to a job posting, and they would just be like, hi, I'm interested in the blah, blah, blah thing, and an email with a resume attached. And that's okay. In theory, that's okay. But it's not going to get my attention as much as a thoughtful email that talks with some knowledge about whatever it is they're responding to for an opening, that talks with knowledge and hopefully some confidence about themselves. And also, I hate to say this, but as a marketer, there's so much psychology involved in simple messaging. But once you've maybe formulated an email to someone, if your resume is attached, make sure you invite them to look at your email or your resume, or you encourage them to see this particular job that you had. Because it sounds overly simple, but like part of my job these days is thinking about what buttons should say on a website to get like 0.1% more people to click on a goddamn button. That's all psychology. It's almost all psychology, and that's also involved in one-to-one messaging on things like when you're trying to get a job from someone. So if a manager wrote that job description, you're going to be feeding it back to them, right? In layman's sales terms, this is like car salesman type stuff. Listen to what the person tells you, feed it back to them as best you can in their language. So take the time, especially in Taiwan, because I think when I go home to America, I could have the opportunity to apply for dozens, if not hundreds, of marketing jobs. But here, even for me, having been here for 9 years or whatever, my next job hunt is not going to be easy. So I need to be thoughtful of these things too, right? This is not only advice for people who are looking for their first job.
Yes, I just want to echo about what mentioned by John. And one thing is that I think the linking is a very important tool right now. For example, when you see a job post, yes, they will mention about what function. So you can search the company name and also the function in linking, and maybe you can find the manager or supervisor, some senior colleagues in that company for that function. So you can also try to link with them to ask them if possible to have a coffee chat, or if it's manager, maybe he will be the hiring manager for this position. So you can also introduce yourself through linking to make some more impression for that manager. And the other thing is that if you really get the opportunity for an interview with this company, you can, yes, usually you will meet the hiring manager. So maybe they will not give you the name card, but you can still find them on LinkedIn and to send a thank you letter to the managers or to other interviewers, and in that way, then you can also make a great impression on them. So this is also very important thing, that try to have more exposure and try to make sure you really did all your best to make an impression. Yeah.
Okay, then moving on, maybe once you've had the opportunity to interview and maybe you got lucky and you've got your first job, one of the things, how many people in the room do work professionally or have worked professionally in Taiwan? Maybe a show of hands? Okay, so maybe half the room. One thing that I'm sure you noticed, as you've noticed with other things living in Taiwan, is there are cultural differences in the office. And one of the things we mentioned at the pre-meeting is we just talked about how can we handle those things? How can you elegantly navigate situations you don't understand, or processes you disagree with, or redundancies, or things that make your job challenging when you feel that you can see that there's no reason for this thing that's making your job challenging. But the easiest way to solve these solutions may not always be to just point it out and tell someone that they could change it, right? So, we kind of gave this like a little metaphorical name, which is basically like, well, we said like, you can't change the culture, but the metaphor is kind of like, if you're a circle and there's a square peg, you're not changing, or you're a circle and there's a square hole, you're not changing the hole into a circle. So, like, there are some things that you can choose to do, not only as an employee, but probably more importantly as a person. Once you get in this work environment, which is very likely to be culturally different than what you expect, how we do it at home, that's one idea you need to fucking get rid of, because if that's not how it was done on day one of your new job here, it's not how it's done here. So it's best, you're going to be best served by letting that go, right? So maybe you want to start on this, because you talked a lot about your company culture.
Yeah, so I mean, my company is very traditionally managed as far as Taiwanese companies go. I'm sure most of you understand a lot of what that means. I guess the thing is, the amount of people foreigners that I've seen come into our company, and they'll be like, oh, we would never do this in America, or we would never do this at home. Oh, I'm not doing that. That's silly. They're out. They're gone. Within a couple of months, because like John was saying, you can't change the culture, you can't change the situation, and a lot of the time, you might be, spellbound about the way that they do some things in companies here, and the way the logic works, the way the chain of management works. But I mean, there's all these people who've been doing it for this long, and they're still here. So my advice would be, especially at the start, just suck it up and do what they tell you to do. And try and make the best of it. There might be issues with communication. There might be like issues with, you can't do this certain thing because that's that person's job, or you haven't been asked by so and so, or the manager says you can't do it. So don't go and do it anyway. Just take the orders from whoever it is, and the higher you get up the management chain of command, the more severe this is going to get, because then you start being involved in the management, and you have to think the way that they. Think about the way they manage here, which a lot is top down, and a lot of it is very vertical. There's not a lot of horizontal flat structures, especially in big traditional companies. And unfortunately, as frustrating as it is, you just need to get used to it because, like John said, you're not going to be able to change it. So I think my advice there would be just to try and adapt and try and, if all you have to do in order to stay in Taiwan to get your visa and to live in this great place is to take have to do a few things at work that you are not 100% into, then just do them, okay? Because if you do them well, then that'll get looked on favorably, and when they're looking for the next promotion, you'll be the one they come to. So.
Yeah, I think you made a very good point. I have a different experience in Taiwan, but I think it's because of I was already working in Carrefour before in France, so it made a special status here. So I could challenge some of the process, but it's very hard. And the first thing when you get into the company, wherever the company, which company is networking. That helped me a lot to help to challenge their decision and process. Because I spent almost 1 year to have lunch with so many different people that I like, of course, that I can learn something. Something you mentioned about when you're reaching out to a hiring manager would be the same. People love to speak about themselves. I mean, everybody knows. So just ask them to speak about themselves. Ask them about their experience, about whatever, how they deal with family, if it's family and job or whatever it is, they love it. So once you get into the company, as your intern or whatever job, just go around and talk to people. Um, Many multinational company here I heard, and mine is included, is really traditional. It's really local. Comparing to other place, here they really got into the local tradition. So it's a big dream, but multinational here, they're still very Taiwanese, and I think I faced the same issues with Trent and Joan. For Eleanor, it's a bit different. But I think as I agree with what you say, you can still make the change, but it's really small change and step by step inside the company. And the more you move up, the more you're facing challenging situations. But I think still they have a reason why. So I think the most important thing is understand why they're doing things. Because when they will explain to you why, you can reply why again. I mean, it's that cycle. And that will help you to understand better their culture. And if they ask you to do something that is illegal or immoral, of course, I wouldn't say just do it, but I hope no. But if it's just something that is just adding 10 minutes more to your time, just do it because it will make someone else happy, and that makes you in a good position in the company to be viewed from other colleagues.
Yeah, so that kind of leads in. We talked about not only the company culture, we talked at our pre-meeting about things like finding allies, which I think is a lot of what Magda just talked about. Meet the people in the company who are going to naturally gravitate towards you, are going to naturally like you, and who might be favorable to you when it comes time to talk about potentially getting a raise or a promotion or a thing like that. But beyond that, we talked also about things you can control yourself to try to elevate your position, to elevate your value, to try to market yourself for a better role. And actually, we found that among our 4 experiences and the companies we've been exposed to in Taiwan, the company ideas and approach to training are very vastly different, right? So I was very lucky that at my last job, just to use a real world example, the Taiwanese employees were given English class for free. And once there were 3 foreigners working there, I, being the highest ranking one, I went to my boss and said, hey, you think we could have Chinese class? And so they said, yeah, that's a great idea. And so then we were provided Chinese class for free by my company. And that was great. And something I already wanted to do. It showed parity with my Taiwanese employees and what coworkers, what they were getting, that kind of thing. But also at this company, there was a lot of engineers, and the engineers were being offered training opportunities. I know that from the marketing department, when I needed something, if my designer needed to learn how to do certain motion graphics, I was at this company, I was able to go and show, hey, we have this need. I found this opportunity for someone to learn, whether it's me or an employee, and actually have a lobby my boss and kind of say, we have this need. here's a possible solution, here's how much it costs, what do you think about it? And there were times where I got turned down, but it was comfortable to have that conversation. And there were times where we definitely were able to invest in our employees, and that's something those employees were able to take with them later as well, right? Every skill you get, whether it's a certification like a Google marketing certification or something from Adobe or learning code, or even if it's more of a soft skill like improving my Chinese, right? There's value for us as employees down the road in that kind of situation. But each one of us has some very different things to say about how the companies we've been exposed to think about trainings and maybe how companies are interested or not interested in making that investment. So any of you guys want to have at it?
Yes. Okay, I can share two of my companies. One is my current company. We also provide English training for employees for free because we have two bosses. One is German and the other one is Korean, and both of them don't speak any Chinese at all. So yes, we as employees, we need to speak English to communicate with them. So that's why our company provide English classes for free for employees. And the second one, the second part is that we will also to do a training needs survey regularly to see if there's any requirements from our employees, and we will consolidate it, all of those requests, and to see, okay, maybe this year we would like to focus on the top 5 or top 7 topics of those trainings, and then we will arrange the trainings and to invite the trainer to our office to deliver the training accordingly. And if those employees they want to focus on some specific classes related to their work directly, they can also go out to find some external trainings and to participate, and then to come back to claim the expense from our finance. So we have the both track. One is internal trainings and the other one is external training. And for my previous company, because my previous company is an American company, and they are quite centralized company. They install one learning management system for all branches around the world. So all of those staff, we get our account to access to the learning management system. So there are maybe thousands of digital online courses, and every employee will be assigned to participate in those online courses. Maybe each one need to take around maybe at least 60 courses per year, something like that. Yes, a very huge amount. So for my previous company, we mainly focus on online training. And I know that the training culture will also be different, depends on different companies and their scope or their employee numbers. Different companies will have different way to do their training.
So actually, my job in Taiwan, I take care of a group of people, and we call that younger talent program. So internally, our company, we organize this program for the younger generation. I'd say like this because the average age in Taiwan for work is quite high. So their younger generation means between 30 to 35 years old. So it's not that young. I mean, it's still young. I'm young, but we're all young. But yeah, so internally we have this program that allows them for 1 year to receive some kind of mentorship training. So we organize some mentorship internally. So we assign some people will volunteer, they're all director level, to help these people to understand the culture of our company, and of course to discuss topics that they couldn't discuss with their manager or their colleagues. And this program will last 1 year. And actually how these people they're already internal in the company. They've been at least for 2 years in the company. And actually they come from any level in the company. So they can be in the store filling the shelves, to the head office doing some digital strategy. The point for me for these people is their mindset. It's very important. When I recruit them, when I look for them, their skills, I don't really care internally because I'm not giving them hard skills training. I'm giving them soft skills training. And my point here is that these people will be hopefully the future of the company. So they go through steps, right? When you are in the company, you need to grow through steps. So this is one way. Internally, the companies, a lot of companies have this kind of program where it can lead you to different kind of a place in the company that you don't know and meet different people. A lot of companies also have management trainee program, which is quite good. And then internally we have our different program to become a director level or to become a store director. So this is mainly program, and then if you're just coming in, we'll teach you what kind of products we sell, why we sell them, etc., etc. And this is our core value is the customer. So of course, for us, the customer service is very important. This is one of our main point in our training. So all people will receive this kind of between soft and hard skills training.
Yeah, so I guess when we discussed this before, I don't know if it's unique to my company or it's unique to the tech industry or something like that. We don't actually have a lot of development opportunities in our company. I guess one of the first reasons will probably be that a lot of the people that work for us are engineers, so they're already very good at what they do. They don't need to go and learn how to do coding. They don't need to learn how to use Photoshop, stuff like that. And I guess on the other side of it is that you get a lot of people that work for these kind of companies, these very well-known companies that come from very good universities. They've already got probably at least a bachelor from one of the best universities in Taiwan, or from abroad, or they've got a master's as well, or they've studied abroad for 10 years. So a lot of these are kind of like at the top of their industry, and they don't need a lot of development. So when it comes to, I guess, what you would call an auxiliary function like marketing, which is not one of the core functions of the company, I don't think that they put as much emphasis into development, where they'd rather put the money into things like research and development of the company and the products and stuff like that. Again, I'm not sure if that's unique just to our company or to tech or whatever, but when we discussed this, I didn't have really much to say about product development.
So we mentioned some things about networking. We talked about who to try to target if you're on LinkedIn, or how to try to reach a hiring manager, and Magda was talking about how to do internal kind of strategic networking. We also talked at our pre-meeting about where do you look in Taiwan. Like, obviously you guys are here, and our hope in having these events is that you find as much value in this room out there. Hopefully you find more value from the people you meet tonight than what you hear from us, right? We have to give this a theme every month, and that entices different people to come out sometimes. But most of the people who come to our events have told us, and I sincerely hope you guys will find this, if not tonight, over time, that the community that comes out to these events become resources for one another. We all know different webs of people, and getting to know these people can be valuable because they can connect us to someone who can be valuable for our career. And that being said, shameless plug, on allhandstaiwan.com there is a link called resources, and actually there we list as many job boards, chambers of commerce, trade offices, student resources, internships, anything as we can find in Taiwan. So if you are looking, feel free to look there. Also, every month we put up a blog post about where to network, and we list as many English professional networking events as we can across any industry in any city in Taiwan. So, this is something that we care about, and I appreciate very much that you guys are here tonight. But going beyond that, we talked about the kinds of networking events we've been to. There's a lot of happy hours, and many of them are strictly a happy hour. Come in, meet people, get a drink. Good luck. You don't know who you're going to meet. Some of them are very themed. There are, of course, workshops. There are trainings. There are other organizations that will run events differently. For example, I'll set this up and we can talk about this as we will. For example, here's another question for the room. In any country, how many people here have been to a Chamber of Commerce event? Okay, so maybe a quarter of the room. So for those of us who haven't been, in Taiwan, and in most countries, but definitely in Taiwan, a Chamber of Commerce event would be much stuffier and much more expensive than this event. So in Taiwan, the chambers of commerce are very much in place to serve the company members, not so much to serve the people who might attend their cocktail hours or their learning events, right? So if you've ever seen, depending on which country you're from, AmCham or BritCham or whichever country, a lot of their events, they're at very fancy places. They're going to cost you 1,500 to 2,000 NT to go in the door, which probably will give you a few more drinks than we give you tonight. But when you go in there, generally should expect to see people in suits, people in business attire, and so the vibe is different, the feeling is different, and depending on the topic, your opportunity to have conversations that may be relevant to networking and job seeking may or may not be more in play in some of those situations. So without inflecting more of my opinion on that, is there anything you guys want to say about not just the chambers, but any other networking events or series or industry specific things that you can do that are or maybe aren't as valuable as you might think here in Taiwan?
Okay, well, I guess when we were talking to pre-meet about Chambers of Commerce meetings, and we were talking about how useful they are, I would say that if you're just at the beginning of your career or you're looking to get your foot in the door, the Chambers of Commerce are probably not the best place to start. A lot of the reasons that John just mentioned, they're expensive, and they're mostly attended by heads of country heads of the members. So the managing director for Taiwan of whatever company, and they're the big decision makers. They're the ones that are doing deals and getting business done. They're not the ones that are hiring a marketing intern. They're not the ones that are looking for a tech writer, and they're not going to know if the company's looking for a tech writer, and they're probably not going to want to talk. They're not going to have a lot of time to talk to you because they'll have a lot of other people they need to talk to at these events. And they also, and I don't want to offend anyone here, so I'm really sorry if I do, but these people are like expats in the very essence of expat. They live in a bubble. They haven't had to try and scrounge to stay in Taiwan. They didn't have to get a visa to stay here. They don't have to worry about how long can they stay if they don't find a job, things like that. So I would say that in the beginning of your career, certainly you could, if you want to just meet some people from your own country or something like that, maybe go to one or two, but don't expect to get really good leads from these kind of events. You'd be better off spending your time going to a lot of the smaller events that are focused on the industries that you want to be in rather than the countries that you are from. And I had another point and I've forgotten what it is right now, so I'll let Magda talk and I will come back.
Thank you. Yes, I don't have a lot to say about Chamber of Commerce. I mostly go to the French Chamber of Commerce because of our company, so I will go out and drink with that big head, which is quite funny. And actually, they don't make a lot of deals; they mostly drink, and it's quite fun. But it's true that they don't. I met a lot of people last year, and they were looking for jobs. It's hard because we want to relax too, right? So that event is kind of, unless you know people inside, so you can, with people, but if you just go alone, it's quite hard for you. But still, I have a very good experience with the British Chamber of Commerce, which is completely free. If you're a woman, they run the Women Business Committee, and it's free, and it's quite, for me, it's good. At least it's helping me to know more people in Taiwan. They can run this kind of events. In this case, it's just for women. I'm sorry, but there's still some small events. Some of them I participate because of my work, but this one is participating personally, and I met mostly of them they're Taiwanese, coming from a lot of different companies. They all speak in English. And it's quite a fun. We meet once a month and have dinner, we chat, and it's kind of another way to meet the local culture and to understand what's going on in our business, because that was my point also. Yeah, to participate in this event. This is my experience in Taiwan, and then for the rest that I've done, being here at this event tonight is just because I reached you out for work actually, and I ended up having a conversation, and he said, "Oh, want to participate to our panel. And this is my first time, so I'm sorry if my English has some problems. But yeah, so I think it's also again this kind of I was reaching out people on internet. I was looking for information in English when I just arrived because I wanted to participate to conference, whatever. And English information is not a lot, so we don't have a lot of opportunities. But that's how I got into few events and I got to know people and then I participate to other things. So this is what I did when I was here. I was not looking for a job, but I was looking for opportunities to meet with other business.
So I can share some events maybe you can also attend because right now in Taiwan we got some more new type of job boards. So before the traditional job boards will be 104, 1111, if you know about it. And but right now in recent 3 to 5 years there are more and more startup new job boards like Take Resume and also Wanted and also one is called Urator. Yeah, three of them are very new here in Taiwan market, and they will also host some offline events. That means some kind of sharing like what we did today, and they will also invite maybe one or two speakers to do some sharing. But something sad is that usually the sharing is in Chinese usually. But I believe the participants they could also speak English, and if you just want to know more about what kind of job opportunities that the job board could provided, you can also join those events and to talk with them, with those staff, or to just chat with other participants. You can always get some more information from this kind of network.
Yeah, and I didn't tee that up for us to take pot shots at the Chambers of Commerce or anything. It's just an entry point. I will say when you look at our monthly networking events calendar, you'll see a lot of great organizations who we're very friendly with, a lot of startup organizations including Mox, Startboard, Anchor Taiwan, Women Who Code. I'm on the spot here, so I can only think of so many, but Taiwan Startup Stadium. There are so many great organizations out there, and by all means, canvass them and see what works for you. I think we're getting a little tight on time, so I'm going to cut this short and head to Q&A. Is there anything any of you really want to say before we go to Q&A, or can I kind of... Yeah? Okay. Can I get a mic runner, Danny or Guillaume or Sean or anybody who has legs? That mic might not be as good. Let's see what happens. Does anybody have any questions in the front here?
What would be your best tip for getting a promotion in Taiwan?
The tips? Okay, first is that you need to understand what your boss, your line manager, cares about. That's the first priority. So when you are doing your job, it's not you're not just focused on the part that you are interested in, and you pay so many efforts to make your project so fancy, but maybe your boss, your line manager doesn't focus on it at all. So you need to understand what your line manager is focusing right now. So try to understand his needs and to try your best to fulfill his needs. And usually his focus will also be the team, the department, the whole department or the company's focus. So try to understand him and to align the same goals to make sure what you are doing right now is aligned with the company goal, aligned with the department goal.
I think I completely agree, and there is another point is to get yourself into other projects. If you have spare time, of course you need to do your job well first, and then get spare project from other departments. Something also very helpful in networking internally with the company. I said it very many times, but I think in Taiwan is even more valuable. That's what I learned in 2 years. I mean, I get more job done now because I know the people than when I just arrived, but the job is the same. It's just that the people have trust on me, right? When I spend time on coffee or whatever, lunchtime, and they trust me, so they will just do whatever I ask them to do. My job in HR is to be a business partner, like we are partnering with other departments, so I need their help. If not, my job is not done. And so it's really like if you can get knowing the people, you will get to know, hey, I'm working on this project, and I need some ideas. Oh, I can help you. Let me think. Let me have a look. This is very important. I've now got myself into a finance project. But not really good, but I'm trying to learn. That's what my point. I want to learn finance. So I just got myself into finance project because I have some spare time and I want to learn more. And that in that way, our department head will know me, and they will know my job, and they will know how much I can do and how much I can learn fast. Because it's not matter what you know how to do things. It doesn't matter. It's how you can learn, how you can be open-minded, and that will help you to get, I think, a promotion in a company.
I think firstly would be to try and let people outside of your department know if you're doing a good job. Don't just let people inside your own department know it. Let others, because especially as a foreigner, you might be working in the tech writing department, but you'll probably be called on to proofread something for PR and to check over the chairman's speech and to do a bunch of things where help one of the engineers to submit one of their applications for a patent or something like that. But just make sure that when you do that everyone knows that it was you that did it and not the engineer. So when the engineer writes you and says, hey, can you just check this over? Check it over, write back, and then CC his line manager in, so they know. Because that means that the next time, when and especially if the directors and stuff see it, when that means that it'll feed back to your line manager, to your director, that you're doing a good job, and that you're helping out, and that you're valuable not just in marketing or in tech writing or whatever, but in other areas. And I guess the other thing you can do, and that's another kind of similar thing again, is try and make, especially if you're a multinational or a company that's got overseas offices, you'll probably be expected or asked to act as a communication bridge with some of these overseas offices. And you can imagine that, for those of you who have worked here, you see email threads that come out from engineers or come out from locals sometimes, and then you see that it got sent to someone in the US or in Europe, and they're probably looking at that going, what does this mean? What is this person trying to say? Or there's a lot of back and forth, there's a lot of confusion. If you can help bridge the language, or the language gap, or the barrier between your office in Taiwan and your office overseas, then that means you've got those guys over there vouching for you as well, feeding back, Trent's doing, it's really great to have someone that I can just go to and he understands what the point is or what I'm trying to ask straight away. I don't have to send 3 emails back and forth and get in a loop with 10 people and stuff like that. So you can just try and facilitate better communication, because essentially a lot of foreigners that are going to get hired, that's why they're there, because of their ability and a lot of times it's going to be ability as a native speaker of English or another language. So if you can show that really is your your most valuable asset, and because if you can do that, none of your other colleagues are going to be able to do it better than you. So I would say that's going to be probably one of the key reasons you'll get some kind of promotion or some kind of recognition, because you'll be indispensable in that way, or making it a lot easier for the company to function the way it does.
I would say very briefly, especially for junior people, think of promotion as very much an incremental thing. And it's not natural for all of us to think this, but sometimes you hear this preaching about if you're ambitious for your career, that means you want your boss's job. Getting a promotion doesn't mean you should try to get the title that your boss has, right? This sounds, again, maybe a little over the top, but when you work in an agency, in a creative agency, for example, a team has all different kinds of people. So you have account people that talk to the other clients, you have writers, you have designers, you have web technologists, then you have the creative director and the art person, and there's all these people, right? And many of those roles actually have a junior and a senior role. So if you're starting out as an account person and you work with an account director, there's probably 2 titles between you and that person who's your boss. So getting a promotion doesn't mean you have to go to account director, right? And this can be hard to understand. It's another thing that I think you should talk to your boss about it over time, right? So getting an incremental promotion shouldn't be seen as a letdown if you don't leap to your boss's title. I've seen some people who are just really aspirational, and it's like, well, if you went from designer to senior designer and you got paid more, well, then you did get a promotion, right? You didn't leap to creative director, but like unless you're skyrocketing, past what everyone else is doing, like promotions are incremental. So just try to keep that in mind.
Sorry, just really quick to add to that. The other thing, because a lot of times, as a foreigner, you might be one of the only, foreigners in your company, so they don't have a specific role for you, or they don't have like 5, 6, 7 roles that you could fit into. So a promotion might not be moving up to the next level. The promotion might be if you're tech writing, but then you also start doing PR, or you also start doing product packaging. Then that's something extra that you've got, and then in 6 months when you do the performance review, you'll be like, well, hey, I've now taken on this job that I'm doing, and you now don't need to hire someone for that, and that's when you can start talking about getting an incremental raise. So a promotion could also be just expanding what you do.
Next question. Go ahead, straight back there.
So, do you have any experience with headhunters in Taiwan? Not for English teaching.
Yes. I'll speak to that. Yes, I've been headhunted. My last job was found through a headhunter. I've also met with many headhunters and to various capacities, full meetings and taken interviews or just initial contact points. Sorry, do you want to, what would you like to know about it?
How useful is that?
Okay, good. If you are a junior employee, unless you are doing something that is crazy specialized, headhunters are not useful for you in Taiwan. And again, that's not something that necessarily should be obvious or hard. A lot of people just don't know. Most in Taiwan, in my experience, headhunters, especially for foreigners, are looking for management level or very specialized talent, management or C-suite, right? And so I have found, well, let's put it this way, we've had a panel of headhunters, and they had a lot of great things to say, and most of them were personal contacts of mine because I had engaged with them professionally. One of them got me my job. 2 of the others at least had earned me an interview. So I can only speak from my own experience in my own industry, but it's very valuable. I would say until you're at least at a management level, or unless you work, again, as like a senior engineer and you're very specialized, it may not be appropriate for you to reach out to them because the headhunters aren't always going to find you. But you should be active on LinkedIn and Taiwan, I would say, if you want to be found by headhunters. But I would say in my experience, they've been very valuable. I've turned down pretty good jobs, but they weren't right for me. It's great. You're letting people know that you're looking for something, and it's their job to try to go find it. They're trying to find a fit for you like they are with the company. So yeah, once your career reaches a certain level, very valuable in Taiwan. I'm happy to speak with you about it. The person who asked the first question here tonight is a headhunter, so if you want to talk to him about it, you can do that later. Yes, do you guys want to?
I don't have much experience, but in the last few months I got reached by a headhunter in Taiwan. I didn't get the job and I didn't go into the interview because I was not interested, but they were looking for something very specific. The first very specific thing they were looking for, HR experience in my case, was English. I mean, we have something very valuable, which is the language, right? However, they needed someone from 5, 6 years experience. So that's why they got to me. But I think that's the same as John said. Once you get 5, 6, 7 years of experience in Taiwan, at least 2, 3 years, then it will be helpful for you.
One thing more I want to say about it from the job seeker experience. Take advantage. If you get meetings with headhunters, ask them questions you can't ask anybody else. Remember that your HR person at work is there to care for you as an individual, make sure you don't have illegal shit happen to you or your visa status. But you can't ask your HR person, like, did I earn enough money? Did I ask for enough money? But when you go meet with a headhunter, you can ask that, right? You can ask point blank, like, how much should I be earning? This is how much I'm already showing you how much I'm earning. Like, where am I at? Am I in the median? Am I underselling myself? Can I double my salary? Or should I have to temper my expectations, right? Because there's a lot of things like that that are hard to ask. And then things like job title changes. Like I've been headhunted for things that are broad spectrum in terms of marketing, writing, business strategy, sales, all kinds of stuff. So, I would absolutely encourage you that if a headhunter, here's how I handle it today. Headhunters reach out on me to LinkedIn where I haven't met them, and they'll connect to me. If they don't say anything, I will send them a message and say, hey, it's great to connect. Thank you for reaching out. I'd love to have a cup of coffee with you. First thing I'm going to do when I sit down with them is ask what industries they work on and ask what kind of jobs that they might have heard of that might be relevant for me, right? They're connecting with you on LinkedIn so that the next time they're searching for a back-end engineer who uses Python, or who knows how bad I fucked that up, or like a person who does a specialized thing, if you're in their network and you do that, hopefully it comes up, and then they can be like, hey, it's been so long since we connected, I might have a role, do you want to have a cup of coffee, right? So they click that offhanded because they're expanding their network. But there's an opportunity there for you to engage that person and then get to that place where you're like, I do this, I'm looking for this, what are you working on? And then beyond that, if they do contact me with a specific thing, I always take the meeting. If you're not looking for a job, I would tell you, it doesn't matter. Take the meeting. First, you might hear that the job is offering a salary that's 70% higher than your salary, even if you're happy as hell. Second, again, you just learn things that you're not going to know from anybody else. Headhunters are talking with HR people about deeply detailed internal needs within companies and industries every day. They understand different trends than anybody else. Again, salary conversations specifically that you can't really have with anybody else. I don't have many peers in this room, neither do any of you, in terms of what your job title is, how long you've been doing it, and how much you think you should get paid in this market. And so if and when you get those meetings, be prepared and be on the offensive, because they're going to ask you a bunch of questions, because it is their job to learn about you as well as they can to fit you, because they get paid when they fit you somewhere. But as with any job interview, when you should be prepared, when you meet with a headhunter, just be hungry and be shameless. I asked, the first time I went to a headhunter meeting, I was really uncomfortable, and it was all these questions to me, and then we went like blow by blow through my resume, and a lot of it I felt good about, and there were other times like, well, it wasn't that good, but you try to explain it, but then like once I had done it a couple times, then especially before I took my last job, I just asked the recruiter, like, where am I at on this? And also, for me, I've been here a long time, and my salary got to a point where the recruiter said, like, oh, I'll just tell you this. I learned a thing, that is, when your salary goes over 100,000 NT in Taiwan per month, some companies will start to balk at that, just as a baseline number, right? Obviously, if you're C-suite and above, you get to these different echelons, that's totally different. But, when your career gets to a certain place, this 100,000 a month thing I've learned is something that companies balk at. So if and when you're fortunate enough to get there and get past that, one tip that I got, and this is not bulletproof, but is interesting and how I've used it going forward, is for me, when I negotiate a salary, I ask for an annual number, and I let the company know that I might be willing to accept 12 to 15-month contracts with the same number, which means that my monthly salary could be divided differently over 12 months versus over 15 months to get to what I hope to be the annual salary that I believe I'm worth. So these are the kinds of weird things that you don't even think about or know how to do until you start talking to a headhunter. Yeah. We got time for one more because we're very long-winded. Maybe over here.
Thank you. Maybe to the two guys in the middle. So basically, you both seem pretty adamant that you were staying in Taiwan, even if, so for you, it was like until your money went out, right?
You mean before I got my job?
Before you got your job, exactly.
Yeah, pretty much.
And for you, it was going through all the hoops and all that. Why exactly were you so adamant to stay in Taiwan, going through all of that shit, when you could have, what is it that kept you here to go through all that to get to a stage where you are, as you say, managing and all of that, then it's a lot easier. Why can't you return to your home country where you've already said there are many more jobs available, faster make through the ranks, then come back, maybe going up for a faster rate? And also, what do you think of the myth that it's harder to go up in Taiwan, or do you believe it's a myth because the quality of life here, it's cheap, it's easy, it's fun? Did you ever have that effect? Did that ever slow down your progression of your career because it was so comfortable living here? Those two things.
Okay. On your first question about why I don't want to stay here, I guess pretty much everyone is in this room because they know the answer to that question. It's awesome here.
Yeah.
So after 5 years of being here, I expected to be able to, because when I graduated university, I went into a government job, had quite a good job, left a good salary, came to Taiwan for 1 year to learn Mandarin, which turned into 2, which turned to 3, which turned into an MBA. 5 years later, I went home, expecting to walk straight back into an equivalent job. I couldn't even find that. I've been out of the market too long. So, and then also, it's, I don't know, I guess a lot of people's home countries they feel the same way, but all the things that make Taiwan so awesome are all the things that make it, it's the exact opposite in Australia, it's not convenient. You can't go out and get something to eat at whatever time of night. It doesn't have the low cost of living. You have to drive everywhere. Healthcare, yeah. And you can't just go to Japan for the weekend. Being able to travel, and so, Australia's the closest place that's not, and not to offend any Kiwis, the closest place is not New Zealand. It's 7 hours away. So, no. Okay, so first of all, I found that I'd been out too long from the employment market, so I was going to have to work very hard and go back in at an entry level.
Even in Australia?
Yep, and I'd also, because I'm like, I speak Mandarin. But then there's so many second-generation Australian-born Chinese that also do. So I'm no use there either. And then I'd also, I'd been out of the social circles. All my friends, were married, had kids, or I had a small circle of friends. And I just felt like I enjoyed being here. I tried to leave twice, and it hasn't worked for me. So I've resigned to the fact that I'm gonna be here forever. Okay, so that's pretty much it. And sorry, the second part of your question was about the myth of.
Well, do you because it's so comfortable living here?
Yep.
You can get by on a pretty average salary.
Yep.
There's less of a rat race. Have you ever got into a mindset where you don't feel as ambitious? And have you ever wanted to get out of that? If that makes sense.
Yeah, the comfort zone's part of it, but then there's also, you can only, realistically, unless you're really lucky, you can only get to a certain level here, but that level's pretty good. So yeah, it is, with the way the cost of living, apart from a few things here, I would say that I'm better off, on the equivalent salary that I make in Australia. I'm probably better off here. So I guess, I think it is a bit of a myth that I could do the same thing or have a much better life at home, so that's why I choose to stay here.
I was much more scattered when I was making those decisions. Like Trent had studied and chose to keep studying, which is valuable for his career. I landed in Taiwan originally just because I went traveling, and when I went traveling, I thought I might like to live abroad, and I don't just want to maybe spend these few $1,000s, which is the most money I had saved up in my young life at that time, and go home. So I reached out to some countries, and I thought I'll teach and see if I like it. And I had never been in Asia, and so I thought I don't really care. I reached out to schools in Japan, Thailand, Korea, Taiwan. And in the end, Taiwan was the most responsive and seemed the easiest. And I thought, great, that's where I'll end up in August when my travels are winding down and I need money. And after living here for 2 years, I traveled again. I lived in Bangkok for a year, so I got to experience a different country. I lived in Malaysia for a few months, and I came back. And then I came back. The reason I came back to Taiwan is because, I love living abroad, and going home sounded boring. And I didn't want to teach anymore. So then I guess for me, the ambitious decision was at that point when I decided to stay and freelance, when it was like the great unknown, really. And I mean, for me, that was the motivator at the time, was I love living abroad, and I wanted to figure it out. And that was reinforced because now I've lived here. I've lived here 3 times. So that was the second time I lived here. And then some years later, I was fortunate to meet some guys who offered me a job in San Diego on a whim, and I took a job, and I went back and lived in America for a couple of years. And in 2015, I was tired of San Diego, and I was thinking about going somewhere else in North America or whatever. And I just started thinking, I'm fucking bored of America. I know it. And kind of to Trent's point, and we come from these large, homogeneous countries. America's fucking huge, right? It's like 6 hours to fly from San Diego to New York. You take a 6-hour flight in Europe, you're going to the Middle East, right? You're going far, far away. In America, it's not far away, So for me, like I also felt like not trapped, but I missed the idea that I could go travel to another country easily. It's like, no, you're doing a trans-Pacific or transatlantic flight, or you're flying further than Mexico. And so I just missed that. You know, like for me, I'm hungry to live abroad, and so my career has needed to support me to do that. You know, and I'm never, like kind of like Trent said, the way I always say it is, I'm never bored one day living in Taiwan. So that makes me happy, and that's why I try to stay here. When I lived back in America, I found that I was getting bored.
So it's this here, as opposed to your boredom or whatever you thought about, even though it's a slightly higher salary. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean the trade-offs in the quality of life, like Trent said, and you know everything, healthcare, travel, you know everything. We're gonna cut it short because you guys probably need bathroom breaks and beers and everything. All of the panelists are here. We are available. One thing I want to plug that I didn't say before, some of you may have talked about it at the door or seen it in our marketing. We are conducting a very important survey that has the potential to impact the lives of all of us here. If you have not heard about the survey or taken it, please find Guillaume, Danny, Sean, raise your hands, please. Please find one of these people if you don't know about this survey, and please give us the opportunity to pitch it to you for 1 minute. We just want to help the government understand better, because what we've learned in the past year is they don't understand at all the foreign experience living and working in Taiwan. So if you haven't heard about our survey, I would entreat you and nearly beg you to please consider giving us a few minutes to spend time with that. Thank you so much for coming. The bar is open. Luca, you're done cooking, but your food was amazing. A round of applause for Luca, please.